Alright guys, welcome back to another video. We got some Bushwacker Fender flares, and I decided to make this video because these are expensive. They're like $500, and I wanted to know if they were worth the money, because there's some $200-300 ones that look just the same, and I couldn't find anyone who made a video on them. I couldn't find anything on them other than pictures, so I thought today I would show you guys a quick install, and then I'm also gonna like do a video walk around, so if any of you guys are interested buying these, you can kind of get like a video perspective and not just pictures to help you guys out. So yeah, Bushwacker Fender flares. These are for my 2012 double cab long bed 2nd gen Tacoma, in case you were curious. I got 35s on here, which requires a ton of trimming. Not to mention, I'm gonna put these on and just immediately cut them. But what I'm going for is these have more of a bulge than the stock ones, like they're wider, which is why I wanted to do this. There's a similar curve in the OEM ones that you know, it bulges out and then it flattens out. So I'm gonna cut these Bushwacker Fender flares in the same spot, right along that ridge. You can see there. So, and that's what I did with these as well. They stick out about an inch more, I'd say. So these are like have an inch more. These are an inch wider, which is awesome. So if you're like me and you took your fender flares off to trim your actual fenders because you put 35s on, and then you tried to put the factory plastic clips back on and it just did not work, and you use zip ties, then for this next step, I'm just gonna cut all the zip ties off with these penny cutters. There's a lot of things you don't know about me. Oh, these are cool. So it's the next day. We found out that those bolts on the fender flares are for show. They actually don't get bolted to the truck at all. They get just sandwiched onto the fender flare. And then the mounting points are underneath the fender and inside the fender essentially, but the bolts are all for show, which caught me off guard. I really thought that they'd be legit, like that would be the mounting point, but I was wrong. The funny part is, on the front fenders at least, the holes line up with the existing holes for the OEM fender flares, and I'll show you what I mean. These holes line up with these holes here, which just really threw me off, because I was like, I thought for sure that's how it was going to be mounted, like with the fender screw going through and then the nut back here and then pinching it all together. So this fender is done. I still got to cut it, so I'm going to cut it right here. So looks pretty good. So yeah, I got that front right one on, just like we talked about. I ended up using some carriage bolts and lock washers, which is pretty cool. So that worked good. They're a little long. I'm probably gonna go back and cut them off after the fact. Oh, and I guess I forgot to mention this, the rears, the back, none of those holes line up at all, which sucks. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have to drill, I'm gonna do 4, one on the bottom left, the bottom right, and then like one off to the left and one off to the right, like in the middle of the back fenders. I'm gonna put it on where I want it, drill new holes for those locations like we talked about, and then kind of how the way it was supposed to get done, where you just like put the bolt in for show and it's just literally there for visuals. I'm gonna do that on all the rest of the holes for the rear. So I'm gonna pick the ones out that I want to do, put bolts in them, sandwich the bolts on, and cut off the excess, and then yeah, then it'll look kind of like it does for the front. So that's the plan. All right guys, so as you can see, the fender flares are done, they are installed, and this is actually 2 days later. So I finished the install like 2 days ago. I actually hit a trail, which there'll be a video on if you want to check that out, with them on. They didn't fall off, which is great. So my overall impressions of the fender flares is they were kind of expensive. I don't think I would do this again for the price, to be honest with you. Not to mention the amount of headache it was to install, purely because I had to cut mine to clear my tires, and you know, when you put 35s on a second gen Tacoma, you have to cut several inches off your fenders and your bed, quarter panel, to get them to fit. So all those factory mounting points for the fender flares are gone, and I found out the hard way that all these bolts that are supplied with it actually don't go into the truck. They actually are just there for show, like they're just a facade, they're just there to look cool. I actually thought they were there to as functional, like to keep it really tight, and they're bolted like every 8 inches to the fender, but that's not the case. They literally just go on before with like really short hardware, and then they just are there for show, and all the mounting points are everywhere else. So they do look cool. They're definitely wider, which is why I bought them. I am happy with how wide they are. They kind of fully encompass my tire, which is cool. I think it's a good look. And yeah, that's kind of what I was after. Just a little bit something different, a little wider look. And I had color matched fender flares, the factory ones that I had cut to look kind of like this, and I actually ended up plasti dipping them black just to see what they would look like, and I really liked it. So the fact that these were black was actually perfect for what I wanted to do. I kind of liked that look and wanted to keep it, so that was a plus. So yeah, this is the final product on the front. You can kind of see a little wave. I don't know if that's from me over tightening one of these bolts. Right where my cut is where the fenders started to go down like a few inches. So there's a line right here where I cut that I just trimmed the whole way off. It has a different shape than the factory. Like this is a little different than the factory fender flares when you do that. So I might go back and like sand and kind of smooth these out a little bit, cut some more off. Maybe right here, but I'm just gonna kind of leave it for now and drive it for a few days and see how I like it. I ended up doing is carriage bolts that had a black tip from Lowe's, washer, and then a lock nut. And yeah, they're 2 inches, so they're a little excessive. I'm gonna go back and cut them. but I didn't have to cut any of them to install because there's plenty of room up here. There's another one, so yeah, I might go back and cut these later, might not. But I just wanted the black hardware, and again, the factory hardware was way too short for what I was doing. I guess another thing to note is these are all in the factory holes. So the factory holes in the fenders, that's where all these bolts actually go on the fronts. The only one that doesn't go in was this one right here, so I drilled that out. Yeah, and then this is just edge trim that I had on my old fender flares. That just kind of gives it like a OEM look. Let's see, and if you're curious, 35 12.5 R17 with an 1.5 inch wheel spacer on the factory rims. And that is about how they're pretty much flush. So if that is helpful to anyone, I'll throw it out there. So yeah, for the rears, I pretty much installed like these two, and that one are all fake, as in I just put the bolt in, I threaded it, and now they're pretty much like a facade, just like the original, and then I had to drill new holes. So the rears do not line up with the factory holes, just as a pro tip. So you have to drill new holes all around, which I could see why some people would want to avoid that. It definitely didn't make me happy. I was pretty happy that the fronts went on in the factory holes. I was really hoping these would, but they didn't. So yeah, if that helps anyone. All right guys, thanks for watching. I hope you liked this video, and we'll catch you guys next time.